Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, December 11th. The board has been in executive session, so to get us started, I need a motion to reopen the public meeting.
I will move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so because we have many guests this evening, we're going to go a little out of order with our normal proceedings and have Mr. Block come up and get us going with our celebration for our athletes. So, Mr. Block, take it away.
First, thank you so much for having us this evening. Special shout out before I give a quick recount of the day and bring up our celebrities that are here today. Wonderful day. The drum line and Mr. Straffolino kind of got us kicked off. Today's leading us out of the building, and just the welcome and the celebration at each of our schools, starting at West Orchard, going over to Roaring Brook, and then ending up at Grafflin, and some of our families got to be there. I'm not sure if the Ryan and the tennis team knew what they were getting into, but I saw the smiles on their face and some of the videos. It was just an incredible day. I think a memory that they will have for a very, very long time. So thank you so much to our school district, the board, for allowing this. It was just an incredible day. So it started off with our Breakfast of Champions up here. And the quiche were delicious. So Aramark, thank you very much. And the Booster Club sponsored that. That was tremendous. And then we traveled off to our school. So I'm going to start by introducing some of our athletes that are being recognized as our state champions. The first one is Ryan Sykes. So Ryan, come on up.
Ryan, since you're going to model, please head over to the board.
So Ryan had a tremendous season last year in all three seasons, cross country, indoor, and spring. And this year, he came out and was just a dominant performer in cross country. There are a number of classes in cross country, and Ryan was the New York State and Federation champion. He ran the fastest time in all of New York State, regardless of class, at the state championships at Queensbury High School. It was an incredible performance, and then he went on to win the Federation the week later. So Ryan Sykes, a sophomore. So hopefully he'll be visiting us very often.
All right, so just what we'll do is we'll have now we're getting into the tennis team. So congratulations, Ryan. What we'll do is we'll have the tennis athletes come up one by one when they're called. You'll get crowned over here by our board president and vice president, and then at the end we'll take a large picture in the rotunda after some closing comments.
So the tennis season is broken into two different seasons at the end. There's an individual tournament and then the team tournament. So it starts off with the individuals where they play singles and doubles, and for anybody that is a tennis fan, we had a tremendous sectionals. We won it as a team, and then we advanced a number of athletes down to the state tournament, which is held at the U.S. Open. So to go in there and play on those courts and be there is just an incredible experience. So we had two tennis players here, Allison Tsai and Michelle Rosenbluth, were crowned the New York State doubles teams champions. It's mandatory to wear these tomorrow. So after the doubles teams, they came right back, and then they jumped on the court as a team. And we won here, then we went upstate and won, and then we traveled down to, once again, the U.S. Open. Pretty much all the families that are here traveled down. It was a long day, an incredible day, and exciting. We won our semifinals, and then we went against Syosset from Section 8, Long Island. It was tremendous matches, little nail biting. We had a missed bag and a racket, caused a little stress in the beginning, but we got over that and got right into it. So I'm going to introduce our first two, our team leaders, our senior leaders, and they're going to do introductions of all of our athletes. So I'd like to bring up Isla Gibb and Meadow Zhang.
Thank you.
So first of all, I just want to thank everyone here for, obviously Mr. Block has been a huge help to us this season, as well as our coaches, Coach Bob and Coach Alcalay. So thank you guys, as well as the Board of Education. We know you guys do a lot of work behind the scenes as well, so just thank you guys so much for that. We don't see it every day, but we know it's there, so thank you guys as well. So first of all, we want to bring up Whitney Barron.
Next, we'd like to recognize Jenna Blum.
Our next athlete is Phoebe Bombach.
Next, we have Simone Coleman.
Next, we have Chloe Gilvar.
Next, we have Ariel Goldner.
Go next. Go now. Just give her a second. Our next athlete is Anya Gunner.
Next, we'd like to recognize Emma Knapp.
Next, we have Cami Lerner.
Next, we have Emily Lors.
Our following athlete is Caroline Mathis.
Next, we'd like to recognize Scarlett McFadden.
Next, we have Sadie McFadden.
Next, we have Parker Robertson.
Next, we have Michelle Rosenblatt.
We'd also like to recognize Daniela Rosenblatt.
Next, we have Captain Ali Sai.
Next up, we have Sophia Wang.
Next, we have Leah Yadid.
And now, everyone give a big round of applause for Captain Isla Gibb.
And let's also give another big round of applause for Captain Meadow Zhang.
Once again, I just want to thank everybody. It was just a tremendous season for all of our fall sports, and this was obviously a very special group along with Ryan, and to all the families for all their support and the district for all their support. It was really just a great experience, and I guess for the seniors, thank you for all you did, and Coach Alspot, he runs our JVB team, his support all year for all the levels. Vanessa Lamtrim does our JV, and Coach Alclay. Coach Alclay really steers the ship. He really drove it and made everybody feel very special and part of the team and did a wonderful job. Coach Alclay, why don't you come on up? Just want to recognize Coach Alclay for the job he did this year, and it was just a tremendous performance. And he's retired now, so he was a little late today for the breakfast. He's not used to getting up that early, but it was a great day, and I think he had a lot of fun today. I think he had a great experience. And John, congratulations. Once again, thank you, everybody.
Ryan is going to say something. Ryan's going to share some comments. Ryan's going to say a few words. I was like, okay.
If you're done, Mr. Block.
Are you done,
I'm
Jamie?
done. No, that's the hook. That's right.
Well, on behalf of the school board, I just want to say we're so proud of everything that you've done. And I'm talking to the athletes, the parents, and the coaches. It's a team effort to make these things happen, and it's really impressive what you're able to do out there on the field and how you're able to keep it all together here in this building also while you're doing that. So really well done, and thanks for being here tonight.
All right, so what we're going to do now, thank you, Ryan, is our entire tennis team with your hats on. Thank you. And Ryan and your families and the board are going to all go out into the rotunda for a big picture right now. So, and I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. So we're going to all head out there. All right, thank you everyone for that. That was we had an exciting morning and an exciting evening. I know they're all out there taking pictures, but I do want to share that this morning was an incredible event organized by Jamie Block and facilitated by our high school, but our 3 assistant principals at the elementary school. And I know some of our board members were able to attend, and it just feels good to have moments like that with our kids, celebrating each other. It's all a part of our belonging work. And of course, we love it when our kids win state championships. So that's an added bonus. So, but now we're going to transition to our middle schools, and I want to welcome our principals, Jeff Curtis and Lynn Stewart. And I know we're going to see some math work today in L building. So when we begin to transition over, everyone's welcome to join us in those spaces. And I know kids are already there with their families. And so now I want to turn it over to Jeff and Lynn, and we're going to begin our middle school presentation.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for having us. Can you hear? Is that on? Good evening, members of the board, community. My name is Jeff Curtis, and I am the Bell principal. This is my colleague from across town, Dr. Lynn Stewart. Thank you for the opportunity to showcase the exciting work happening in our school mathematics programs at the middle school. Our work is rooted in the district's strategic plan, which we spent some time talking about today, and I know Lynn will tomorrow, as one of our key strategic priorities. Tonight, we'll highlight our focus on increasing rigor, fostering quantitative literacy, and enhancing student engagement across all grade levels. We achieve this by grounding our work in research-based, skill-focused instruction and curriculum. At the heart of our efforts are the standards for mathematical practice, part of the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards. These guiding principles define how students engage with math content and develop critical habits of mind. The standards emphasize problem solving, reasoning, precision, and making connections, skills essential for academic and real-world success. Our instructional strategies, lesson designs, tool selection, and efforts to promote meaningful mathematical discourse are all informed by these practices. Our mathematics teachers also track where and how they explicitly teach these critical skills to ensure consistency and progression. The standards for mathematical practice focus on skills that all students, K-12, develop over time. These skills overlay the specific math content that varies and spirals through the years. On the left side of the slide, you can see examples of math domains that are grade level specific, and on the right, how these universal skills apply across all areas of learning and that are carried through K-12.
As you may remember, we recently rewrote the profile of a Greeley graduate, and we shifted the focus to defining student literacies that we want all of our students to have as they graduate CCSD. Tonight, we're going to really focus on quantitative literacy, which is now all of these literacies are prominently displayed in all of our buildings across the school. Both the Strategic Fellowship as well as our buildings have really started to explore this work deeply, and they ground it in the research of the science of literacy that we all have been using to ensure a comprehensive approach. Tonight, we are going to be focusing on 3 key themes: personalized learning, quantitative literacy, as well as the co-taught model. For personalized learning, we prioritize tailoring instruction to meet diverse student needs based on research-based reasoning routines. For quantitative literacy, we're really looking to bridge the gap between everyday language and our mathematical vocabulary. We foster the reasoning through a whole bunch of different tools, but tonight you're going to see 2 of the tools. You're going to see the 3 reads protocol, which you can see is up here on the left, and you're also going to see the Desmos polygraph, which is down here on the right. These strategies enhance communication, they deepen thinking, and they also encourage collaboration. For our co-taught model, we shift from the consultant model to the co-taught model very recently, and it has been an amazing shift. It has increased student contact time, as well as supporting targeted interventions, and this has greatly strengthened collaboration for our teachers in the classroom. Tonight, you're going to see 2 interactive stations with our students. The first one here will be our quantitative literacy with the Desmos polygraph. You can see some of our students' quotes from, this is something they do regularly in the classroom. And it's going to be led by 2 Seven Bridges 6th grade teachers, Hoda Violante and Beth Munsinger. And they're going to really be showcasing how Desmos really supports vocabulary, critical thinking, and you're going to really be able to see some real-time assessment that they collect on students by using the Desmos polygraph. Our station 2 will be the 3 reads protocol, and they're going to be demonstrated through our Bell 8th grade teachers, and you'll see Angel Titre as well as Lindsay Stevens, who are a co-taught pair. You're going to be able to see them teach this together. And what they're going to demonstrate is how this strategy particularly helps students analyze and solve real complex problems. These approaches build skills progressively, and we really are looking to prepare students for the rigor in 8th grade and beyond. So in front of you, you will see that there's a card already on your little tables, and it's going to help direct you. There's 2 groups. Group A is going to start in the larger space for the blue room in upper L, and then in the smaller classroom to the left, Studio 3, the B will start there, and then we're going to just do 2 10-minute stations and then flip-flop. So you will be able to see both 6th and 8th grade through the presentations. So we want to just thank you all, Jeff and I, for supporting our middle school programs and very specifically our mathematics program. And we hope you enjoy the students and all they have prepared. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to get started right away so we keep the time. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Violante and Ms. Montfinger. Welcome.
Hello, welcome. The activity we're doing is from the Desmos platform. It's called Polygraph. It is based off of the Guess Who board game. In this activity, the students will get 16 cards with math objects on them. And from these cards, there will be one person will be choosing, and another person will be asking yes or no questions to try to figure out the card that they're missing. This is a virtual activity, so the person you're playing will be somewhere in this room. When we play it in school, my students can play against Ms. Violante's students on the other side of the school.
We love that.
And they absolutely love that.
They're paired randomly, so it doesn't, we don't know who they're paired with. Sometimes it's their own classmates, and sometimes it's down the hall, so it's pretty cool.
We do this to reinforce concepts and vocabulary. So we elicit that vocabulary from the students after we've taught the concepts, and they usually have notes or it's posted on the smartboard for them to refer to so that they can be precise in their language as they're playing.
This connects to standards of mathematical practices. So these are the 4 that it connects to for this particular activity, where we persevere in solving the problems because kids can refine their questions and play the games a few times. They construct viable arguments because they're writing and reading questions for understanding. They're attending to precision because they want to accurately, phrase these questions so that they're using that mathematical vocabulary that we're teaching based on the list of terms that they come up with and what we've learned. And they also look to make structure where they're looking for patterns to deepen their understanding to write those great questions. So what you are going to do is you're going to play hopefully at least 1 round and hopefully 2 so you get better as you play each round. And our students will help you facilitate some questions. If you don't know what a quotient, coefficient, is, exponents and stuff, they will tell you terms. So you're using these words to help you ask questions so that you can guess your function. So we're going to ask you to turn and start your activity. And we can actually see a dashboard of what you guys are doing. This is like an example of a dashboard. So we know what the kids are writing.
Don't say anything inappropriate.
Yeah.
So first,
so I'll tell you.
And then it's gonna randomly match this up. So we're gonna choose a card and just choose a card you think that would be hard to decide in the question. Just any card that you want. Doesn't have to be.
It's pretty small enough.
He's gonna be asking us a question.
So she's like over there somewhere?
Yeah, she's over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So are you my partner?
Yep.
Are you my partner?
Oh, yeah, great. 3 terms? Okay.
Oh, we'll start saying fancy words.
No, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. These are sometimes
And then
they say
after this, we're not
Correct, we already.
try to get closer together.
and then are they going to ask us?
So it doesn't have
A name.
yeah, so we can eliminate
That one.
yeah.
He's the one that would have that one.
Yeah.
That one.
That's not a call.
Oh, wait a minute.
Because
Because
it
it's
has
got
a
the
very-
exit. All right, they get him.
Yeah. So then you can
Okay. Are they gonna ask us?
now so they pick the card, so we're the people.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now we can talk about the
About the
terms.
X.
Oh yeah, so we can talk about the power. Is your expression have this power to it? Okay. Or something like that.
I love that. Oh, I should start.
So I right? I can eliminate everything but that's it. And trinomials from last one, right? So we're down to 2. We're down to these 2. Oh no, that's a no, because she said it doesn't have a coefficient of 3, right? Okay, so now I could ask, is the coefficient of the second term 4. How's that?
Oh, it might have been better to ask, is it negative?
So
that's
let's see.
the coefficient of the second term is.
Okay, so
You got my question. So maybe we can just play it again. Oh, but first it usually asks a question. So select 2 cards, doesn't matter which 2 cards you choose. And side.
I want to. It has 3. That would be the 3 terms. Does it have 3 terms? Could I ask that?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Does it have 3 terms? Because then it would be good if we could eliminate all the 3 terms. We'd get rid of 3 more. Yes. So we can get rid of this and this and this. Right? Am I good?
Yeah.
What if I say pick a?
I think this one. I can't wait to see.
No, they each have 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah. I want
Okay.
to see it. So when it's like it.
Now I don't know.
send her a message saying like you specific. Oh, yeah, super.
We just did. We were confused if he did, like, if it involves 2 terms or if it's like just 2 terms in your
Or 2. She could have done off.
You should be able to decide.
That we wanted to tell her.
Got
We
it.
were specific.
Got it. Okay.
But I feel like if you say I'm not sure. We have 2, right? Because we said F,
Well, it's
Yeah, I know.
very huge terms.
but it's still, I think.
I think just say yes.
Agreeable.
Very simple accents. Again, I think we just.
Based on the last.
Yeah. you're right.
Well, I didn't get very much. Actually,
It should have knocked out that.
Amir, we're bringing pizza.
Yeah, so.
Well,
It's not going right. Maybe they just are having a conversation about it, 'cause they're not typing a question. Yes, there you go.
yes. But I think they would ask because X is the only
Right, so why would you say, there's no Y's or Z's or any other variables?
I know.
Those C words get confusing.
So once again, situation where the question asked was, are there 2 variables? So we decided to say yes, even though there's X.
One
It's just
variable, but
appears 2
twice.
times.
We
That's
just
so they
thought
should-
it because
yeah,
X
is your, yeah.
variable,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
They've now eliminated the correct answer.
Uh-oh, so it's gonna tell them.
Oh, they just
They
corrected.
just-
Okay.
Yeah.
They should be looking out.
got rid of that because the negative 3. You go back to the. Look, it says the negative 3.
I know what you were hoping for, but unfortunately.
No, you really need to win this game here, but we have about 1 minute left. 1 minute.
So they question, yeah.
Yeah, so now.
That's
Yeah. Okay.
All right, now.
So let's ask a question about the coefficient. Because there's a
Or -4.
we talk about, yeah.
+4, +4. Okay, how about
But the
we ask if there's a 3, a negative?
or
We did that. We did the -3. Hold on. Is there a -3?
so then, because we already know we can eliminate those, but we can't eliminate.
Okay, so we're down to these two.
So we can ask if it has if the coefficient, if the variable, wait, does your, we could ask if
Does
your ask if your variable has a half. Wait, that doesn't.
we gotta see a
Does-
word between these two,
You
right?
can ask, do you
Okay, I
have a
know that
variable
we're in the
that
middle of the
stays
game, but that's okay because we're going to have our adults in group A now rotate to the free read protocol. Our students are going to reset your desk notes for your next group.
I think you had done. We can do it.
Means you're having fun if you don't want to walk away, right?
There's some going.
And this is what happens.
What does that mean? That was good.
Just like you guys, unfortunately.
Let's say, I'm sorry, can you put it down?
Oh, look at that.
You anywhere, wherever you spot.
Yeah, I think we're missing. It's still in the middle of their thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it's fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can take one here, or there, either one.
The math roll wins. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Stevens. I'm one of the algebra teachers at Bell. Hi, everyone. I'm one of the 8th grade special education teachers at Bell. Tonight, we brought students from class who demonstrate a willingness to try new things. They're great collaborators, and they are always persevering. They're going to be working alongside of you to help you with our free reads protocol. They're going to describe what it is, and then we're going to do some math.
The free reads protocol aligns with the first standard for mathematical practice. It also supports with differentiation skills such as processing, comprehension, problem solving, and perseverance. Today, you'll work alongside the student and you will engage in these steps, and then we will come together and see how it goes from there.
In class, we make a word problem to use a free read protocol. We read the word problem 3 times, and each time we listen to different information. During the first read, ignore the numbers and just listen to visualize the problem. While you're listening to this algebra regions problem, ask yourself, what is the story about?
What is the story about? Jen joined a movie club at the Jacob Burns Movie Theater. At this theater, the cost of admission in May and June remains the same. In May, she saw 2 matinees and 3 regular price shows and spent $38.50. In June, she went to 6 matinees and 1 regular price show and spent $47.50. Algebraically determine the cost of each matinee ticket and the cost of each regular ticket. So you're going to turn and talk and just discuss what was the story about, who's involved, what's going on. Some of the kids are already writing, but turn and talk.
And in May, she saw matinees and regular.
It was in May.
So what are we trying to Jacob Burns is all regular, not easy.
All right, who wants to share? What is the story about? What's going on? Go ahead, Anna.
It's about a woman named Jen who goes to matinee shows and regular.
We got Jen, she's going to shows, matinee and regular. Sloan?
It's in May and June.
She goes for 2 months, May and June. Anything else? Kennedy?
She's in the movie club at the
There you go. Do you like something?
The price was the same.
Yes, the price was the same. Anything else you want to add? Go ahead, Anna. Oh, she said that the prices of each show are different. Okay. Now we're going to move on to read number 2. Harper.
In the second read, we are identifying the numbers that are involved and how they relate. While you're listening, ask yourself, what are the numbers, what do they represent, and how are they related?
Jen joined a movie club at the Jacob Burns Movie Theater. At this theater, the cost of admission in May and June remains the same. In May, she saw 2 matinees and 3 regular price shows and spent $38.50. In June, she went to 6 matinees and 1 regular price show and spent $47.50. Algebraically determine both the cost of each matinee ticket and the cost of each regular ticket. So now we're going to think about what numbers are presented and how they're related to each other. So you'll go ahead and work with your tables.
Oh,
Oh, you have a matinee. I love how you're
Mr. Bloss, will you explain how you made your table? I love that.
oh, I made a table of the numbers where I have the matinee, the regular, May, June, so that I know which months, and then I put this one. So,
What do you got over there?
Yeah.
2 matinees and 3 regular shows. 6 matinees and 1 regular.
All right, let's pause for 1 second. Let's discuss our numbers. What are they representing? Who wants to do some sharing?
Sure. Fiona?
In I need to 2 matinees and 3 regular.
Say that one more time. How many?
She was in 2 matinees and 3 regular.
So 2 matinees.
Juliana?
In May, she spent $38.50.
Okay. Ashley?
That was in what month?
In June.
Oh, okay.
Using the 3 reads protocol in math helps us break down complex problems, making them easier to understand and solve. During the final read, we are identifying the question being asked and setting up our model to represent the situation. While you're listening, think about what do we need to find and what equations can you set up.
So you're focusing with your tables. What do we need to find and what are the equations we're actually going to set up?
Jen joined the movie club at the Jacob Burns Movie Theater. At this theater, the cost of admission in May and June remains the same. In May, she saw 2 matinees and 3 regular price shows and spent $38.50. In June, she went to 6 matinees and 1 regular price show and spent $47.50. Algebraically determines both the cost of each matinee ticket and the cost of each regular ticket. Turn it off with your partner. What is the question asking? What equation plays it?
Question asking how much one matinee costs and how much one regular shows to do. We can do
And X would be matinee.
yeah, and Y could be regular. So it'd be 2x plus 3y is 38. And then 6x equals 47. And then we can do elimination. We can get 3 to equal.
And what process?
This is the process
of elimination. So you're filling in for the M of 3. You're replacing the M with a 3.
So that means 2.
Oh, I see. I got you.
And then you would do like if it's the same percentage, you'd subtract, and then you'd get like 1.
You're trying to isolate the
Then you
variables.
get
I see a lot
-8.
of us are dying to solve the problem, and I understand that you want to do that. Mr. Block. I know, I'll go a mile a minute over here. So what was the question asking? What are we actually trying to find? Juliana, go ahead.
How much the cost of one mat and my ticket cost, and how much is the cost of one regular ticket?
How can we represent that in our equation? The cost of each ticket. Well. Perfect. Who wants to share one of their equations and explain like where did it come from? Go ahead, Sloan.
2x plus 3y equals 3850.
2x, 3y, 3850. Nice job. And who wants to share the second one? Go ahead. 6x plus y equals 47. Amazing. And I'm just curious, which method were you guys going to use to solve? Actually, I want to share. Go ahead. What were you going to do? I think that's very efficient. Anyone else? We're going to use elimination? You're starting to? I know it's hard to stop yourself from solving a math problem. Will is going to wrap us up with some reflection questions. And in real life, we would obviously solve it and get our answer. So choose this prompt and then discuss with your table.
What did you say? The figuring out is where
Would anybody like to share their reflections that their group had? Go ahead, Anna. Anyone else like to share? Go ahead.
When interpreting a word problem, I need to ask myself how to problem
It's always a good question to ask yourself. Anyone else want to wrap up our last reflection? 3 is a lucky number. Okay, thank you, Will. And that's sometimes hard to figure out. But when we focus on one thing at a time, it makes it even easier. So thank you all for experiencing this with us. Thank you to our students that came today. They rock. Well, thank you to students, board members, everybody. Everyone for the support, truly.
So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna have the students and everybody head next door so the board, if they have quick open forum questions. So parents, you can watch from the other side, but we'll have all the students come over and join us next door with the Board of Ed for both buildings. On our way.
Thank you.
I can have all of our students and our teachers up here, please.
Maybe you can turn on that. Part of the class.
All right, so that was an incredible math experience. They're different depending on what space you're in.
But I want to thank you for allowing us to experience a little bit of what math feels like in the classroom. So this point, just a really brief opportunity for the board. If you have any questions, and it encourages anyone who'd like to, answer, it would be great. So let's
Yeah, I just thought that was really fun in both rooms. And when I was a kid, I never described math as fun ever. So I just wanted to know if you guys are having as much fun as I was just having. If you are recognizing that it's through games and through the whiteboard tables and through these different learning tools, you're able to break down problems in a different way to make it more accessible.
Yeah. I think that when they make math interesting, like Guess Who, it's almost like I'm playing a real game, and I don't even think of it as math. I just think of it as I'm playing a game, and it has a little bit to do with math. When they base it off the real game I played, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, math is really fun.
How come? Why?
Because they turn it into fun games and have better tools to make it fun and
Easier to understand.
It also helps you remember the vocabulary.
I think that different techniques also help us have a balance of working and having fun, because it's very we feel supported, and it just makes it easier for us, so it's less stressful. You might be playing next to someone who's right next to you, and then next round you're playing next to someone across the hall.
Yeah, so that was so cool.
I was curious in that competition between teachers.
There's times we call each other, tell your student he's not asking the right question, or just eliminate the problem.
That was happening
I have a question, I guess, for the 8th grade students, because when we heard the first reading of the word problem, I felt like I was back in 8th grade, and my first response was panic to the algebra question. And I'm wondering, when you're not in class, when you're at home working on these word problems, do you find that you're able to take this technique home, and even when you're not necessarily talking to a classmate, to do the 3 readings and kind of break it down that way? And is that helpful?
Yeah.
Good.
I think the only way I was able to manage that was to read it 3 times. When does that start? When do you start reading the problem 3 times? Does it start happening in the 8th grade, or have you been doing that for many years in the past?
8th grade.
Okay. I think we should filter that down to the lower levels. I think it's really helpful.
It's a good strategy. One of the things that I would throw out is that, especially for our 8th graders taking 2 Regents courses, it's something that our living environment teachers are utilizing different ways as well, so that there's some cross-pollination of that strategy, because it's effective no matter what you're trying to digest.
And I really love the first read, not even to pay attention to the numbers.
It's actually happening in our 5th grade classrooms.
So it is new, to the district, but really Kate Plate, who is the staff developer, as we are leaning into a lot of the work with the mathematical standards, down to 2nd grade even, that they're starting to do a lot of these strategies. And what you're seeing with the 3 reads protocol is also crossing into other disciplines. They're using it for science, our living environment teachers heard about it, they're picking it up. So a lot of what we want to see with literacy is that it crosses over and not just stays in one content, and it becomes interdisciplinary. So a lot of even our skills that we're teaching, as well as anything to do with literacy, you can see that actually behind Dr. Ackerman on the board there is all different where you experience the decimal polygraph with expression. It can be with a whole bunch of different pictures, terms, as well as words, maps.
The other subjects.
So what's really good is that you can see this really cross-pollinate, but we have where our 8th graders have not experienced this, but it has now trickled all the way down to our elementary school that they're starting to implement quickly.
Yeah. So I just want to say that I so appreciated starting off here with the 6th graders. I do have a 6th grader, and I'm going to ask him when I go home that there were so many resources. I had my partner, helping me. Then I had a sheet helping me. Then there was something on the board helping me. And so there was just so many resources. And I'm sure there's probably more in your classrooms, right? So I really appreciated that. So to remember to use all my resources. And then when I went over there to the 8th grade, with the 3 reads, I appreciated how at the end, even though we did really well and we went step by step, like doing it together and then like sharing out and then doing it again and then sharing out. At the end, there was another question that said, well, even though you did great, what would you do better, even better next time? And, we're talking about how we might label, and more clearly or reading it. I talked about how I know it's a 3 read, but like I was reading it like 6 times, like on the side. I was like, I don't remember. And then also reading it and stopping at each punctuation and just thinking, okay, I just read this sentence. What does that mean? And so it's just, and, the talking back and forth between the partnerships and, in our group over there, where there was 3, where here was 2. I think it's amazing and it's incredible. So you guys are so lucky to have all those resources and incredible teachers. Thank you.
Thank Jeff, Steve, and of course our teachers for helping facilitate this evening and our students and their families, allowing us to experience that with you. And I know that everyone has school tomorrow, and so I'm just going to wrap up here. But again, thank you. It was excellent, an excellent experience. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kate Blake. Thanks, Kate Blake. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you to everybody for making that happen. I'm going to do my normal gratitude shtick now that I always do at the start of the President's Report. And I didn't even know what to pick. I had so many things to pick from this time. So I'm going to highlight a couple things. One is I want to thank all the building leaders, teachers, PTA, and guests who participated in National Inclusive Schools Week stuff. That was a big effort. It happens every year at the beginning of December. There was music, there was poetry, there was guest speakers, there was Greeley kids going to the elementaries and reading, all these really great activities that happen every year. That's super important for meeting our inclusion goals. So that's my first one. Second, thank you to elementary teams and Carol for arranging literacy tours for those of us on the board to get to go and see firsthand inside the elementaries all the excellent evolution of that work that's happened since many of us have been in elementary schools. So that was super to see just how we're connecting all the different programs and evaluating what we got from the audit and thinking about more improvement all the time. So that was super. And then I think the other things I was going to do, we've already done those things in the agenda because we went out of sequence. So you'll have like the winter concert series and stuff like that, Christine, in your update, right? So yeah, so on the agenda, we already recognized athletes. We already recognized and got to participate on things with middle schoolers. And in terms of items, the only real point of emphasis I would share is there's a lot of HVAC on there. So we're gonna talk about HVAC contracts a little bit.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And would you like to, Ryan? Would you like to talk
Should we
about
do the
the
handbook now?
handbook, and
Or
then
the
we can
calendar?
we can do the calendar after
next.
because
Okay,
I'll
sure.
be using my presentation to kind of help.
Okay. So for those who are not aware, if you haven't been following along, this summer the board adopted a governance handbook for itself. We adopted that a couple months back, and since then we've revisited one of the elements in that handbook. And so because we've made one change to it, we need to pass a resolution amending the handbook to reflect the change that we made. So I'm going to look to my board members for a motion to take up this resolution that we adopt the revised Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education Governance Handbook. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Okay, so also under the president's report, but it really kind of is an opportunity for the district to share a draft calendar for next school year. We always do that at the December meeting, typically, and then we ask the community for feedback, which we will do before a calendar is presented to the board's consideration for potential adoption in January. And so I just want to talk about, before we show the calendar up here, what we think about when we actually create it. Okay, so with the calendar, there's certain things that need to be included. So we have federal and state holidays that we have off, and that's also connected to our bargaining units and the days that are recognized within those units as holidays. Then we have to think about the BOCES calendar, because we do have some of our students who go to BOCES, particularly at the high school level for classes. And so we have to look at their holidays and their recesses. Then we have some regulations that we have to follow, like all of our students need to be in for 180 days. And then SED lets us know when the last day of school is, and it's called the rating day. Then we have days outlined in the teacher's contract. So we have 4 superintendent conference days that we need to schedule, and one has to happen before school begins, at least one. And then there are 2 early release days for parent-teacher conferences, K through 6, that are in the contract. And then the last 3 days of school, if we don't have any concerns around meeting our hourly requirements, are 3 half days for students only, and teachers stay a full day. And so, and in the calendar, teachers are in classes and on campus for a maximum of 185 days. And then we have to think about student attendance patterns and what days that we can anticipate a lot of students would be not attend school if we had it in session. So for example, I always give the Friday after Thanksgiving as a day that we have off in the calendar. All school districts typically have that day off because you would anticipate students may be traveling and wouldn't be able to attend school on Friday. And so now if you could pull up the draft calendar. Okay, and so you'll see in this year's calendar, just like we did last year based on recommendations from the DET. At the bottom, I'm going to start with the bottom. We have our holidays observed and celebrated by our community. And some of them are attached to days off and some of them aren't, depending on what the holidays are and where they land within the calendar. And then in the notes section of the calendar, we delineate when our recesses are, when our early release days are, and why, because they have specific purposes attached to them, like parent conferences, and then when our superintendent conference days are. So all of the holidays that we know are observed and celebrated by our community are on the bottom. It helps people understand why specific days are off, but it also helps our faculty in planning assessments and other activities to be respectful of different identity groups. And then you can see that within the calendar, through the gray shading, the days the district is actually closed. And so in this year's calendar, it's different than last year's calendar, and every year is different depending on when required holidays fall. And so you'll see in the way that this was developed, based on where holidays are falling, the first draft of this has 2 weeks off at the winter recess point. That doesn't always happen, and that doesn't have to happen, but based on the way that this calendar is being configured, that's the first draft recommendation here. And you'll also see that I made some adjustments to the early release day schedule in November, and I separated them out into 2 different weeks based on some parent feedback we received around the difficulties in supporting their elementary kids with those half days off in their work schedule. So those are the 2 major adjustments. The other thing that I did in this draft is I because of the way that the calendar is configured, in the past, the board has been giving the Friday off before Memorial Day through resolution if I can't plan that within the calendar, if we don't use our snow days. So I just have that articulated in here clearly so people can plan in advance. And I also put some language in here if the snow season becomes really challenging, what the makeup schedule would look like if we can't support Zoom instruction, which I don't anticipate ever needing to use. And the last thing is we're in contract negotiations with the CCT, and so their contract impacts this calendar. So I just wanted to let our families know that we could make some adjustments to some of these early release days based on the outcome of those negotiations, but you have to base the calendar for next year based on this year's contract. So that's the way it can't be. That's how I have to create it, but we might make some adjustments when that process comes to conclusion. And so I think our process in the past, which I'm recommending, is me presenting the calendar and then us gathering feedback from the community. If they choose to share it, I'll push it out in a week with a link to provide feedback directly so we can all see it rather than send emails to us. So it's all gathers in one place. And then we can really look at that in January and make some decisions as to whether or not we want to make some adjustments to this or if we want to move forward with the way that this is presented. And we have 2 meetings in January. So we have all the time we need, but typically we try to get this adopted before the end of January so people can plan their schedules for next year. So I don't know if you want to have discussion about this or how you want to move forward here.
Hillary's got a question.
I just sort of have an observation. And first of all, I think like I never expected the most contentious thing serving in the school board to be the calendar, but every year we get a lot of feedback and we appreciate the feedback, and it's clear that people's wants and needs are not necessarily aligned within the community. And as my kid has gotten older, I appreciate that wants and needs are very different when your kid is very young versus when they're not. What I just, and this happens a lot, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but just looking at the structure of there being so many days off and so few full weeks in the fall versus the spring, it's just a very, very long stretch for kids between when spring break falls this early, like in the very beginning of April, very end of March, through then the end of the school year. There's almost no time off for the kids. And I don't know if there's a way to balance that. There probably isn't, given all of the other constraints, but I just wanted to mention it because they barely go 2 full weeks in a row in the fall, and then it's like 9 full weeks straight in the spring. And I feel like every year that feels very long, but I don't know if there's anything we can do about it.
I think you're right about, so like everything else, it's going to be some parents looking at that will be like, finally, we can go to school. And some parents will say, oh my gosh, we need a break. And it's the flip side of that. In the fall is the same thing. We have no school, but also with the half days and dismissal, that is for the lower grades only. It doesn't impact the older students. So there's a difference there. And it's going to be the same thing with the winter recess, where we are anticipating 2 weeks off this upcoming year. And parents are going to say, well, that's too long. I have to work. And that's all valid and true. And there are parents who are looking for that year that this comes up every few years, where they appreciate the longer break so that they can do the trip that they've been waiting for because they couldn't otherwise have taken it without this longer break. But again, not to say one is more important than the other, but I think these are the things that we have to deal with. But I think just what Christine mentioned about how there are so many factors that go into it. So we have to prioritize the musts first. And I think I want to say, and just repeat what you said, Christine, about the last day of school is not up to us. Is that correct?
We have the rating day for the that's set by New York State.
Right. So it's not Dr. Ackerman that's setting the last day of school. It is the state. And I just want to put that out there on record so people could sort of say, okay, it's not a district-based thing. So I just want to remind everybody that when camp starts coming around.
Yeah. To jump on what Kaylee said, because it's not explicitly written on here, but just for parents who might not know, at the high school level, classes usually end in the second week, at the end of second week of June, give or take, and then the final 2 weeks are exams, so that you wouldn't see that on here. And also at the middle school level, that last week tends to be this says early dismissal only through K through 4, but sometimes the middle school level has that too.
Right, so the middle school can have half days the last 3 days of schools if they have planned assessment on those days under the regulations. And so we've been able to create and facilitate those for our students, even being mindful that we have some students who aren't even able to attend that week because their families had made camp commitments for them. I also want to share that in understanding that our end of the year events are for our students, we have been really flexible at offering those at a time where we can anticipate that all of our students will be here. And so we've moved those moving up ceremonies out of that last week in anticipation that students will have plans those weeks with their families that they have no control over. So.
And speaking of calendar, that reminds me, June, our graduation date for this year is different and there's a reason for that. We
Yes.
didn't just switch it up for the
Yes.
sake of switching.
Yes, because the New York State Athletic Association moved their state championships ahead 1 week. And so in this calendar, it's not going to be a problem if they do that again, because we can have graduation on the Saturday, the 20th. That's not confirmed yet. In next year's calendar, we'll have to have a discussion about potentially moving graduation to Friday because it can't be on Juneteenth. Right. So those will be conversations that we'll have next year at this time. But just as it like and that's only if the athletic calendar remains the same. Sometimes they change it. But it's all very complicated and there's a lot of competing interests, and just try to do my best to support what everyone needs using the calendar and the days that we have allotted in it. But I think it's important people also understand there's a lot of control in where certain days land that we need to give our employees off for. So, yeah.
I think
Anybody else?
if you're going to push this out in the week, Christine, I think you should also put the preamble that you had here, just, to illustrate how little flexibility there actually is.
All right, so we'll look forward to getting community feedback and we'll revisit in January at one of the 2 or both of the meetings if necessary, right?
Yep, great.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll share the feedback directly with the board for those who decide to send it in. So thank you. All right, so now we're going to go to like a recap of our work session last week, where we met with the board and our building principals just to talk about key areas of the budget that we wanted some insights on in order to facilitate our planning so we could prepare for the January meeting. So the first conversation we had centered on our pre-K pilot at Grafflin, and we talked about, how that program was going. We discussed that we had more applicants than spaces that we had, and we anticipated that if we opened more classrooms, we'd have more families enroll in the program. But we also talked about that program, aside from supplies and some equipment, is fully funded, the staff in there, by grants. And we have some concerns around state funding and federal funding in the future. And so we're really cautious about expanding the pre-K program at this time with those unknowns. And so it was our recommendation, and we discussed in that conversation how we felt like, provided our funding remained consistent, which is an unknown right now, that we would continue the program at the Grafflin Annex only. But as the new federal administration comes into office and we have a better understanding of the governor's response to foundation aid, that we would keep an open mind to potentially expanding that program in the future, provided it was fully funded through state or federal grants. And I think that's a pretty solid summary of what we talked about. If I don't know if the board wants to add anything to that conversation, but that was our recommendation that we talked about collectively. Okay, so the next thing, which I think is important that we discuss, is that I asked the principals to attend the meeting and along with Mario, and everyone was able to attend, with the exception of our West Orchard principal, but she did provide some feedback with the board because we needed to have an understanding of what the school resource officer program would look like in our district moving forward if we decided to continue, because our contracts are expiring with the town. All 3 contracts, our 2 contracts that support all 3 officers are up for renegotiation. And I need to provide the town notice within 180 days of them expiring if we plan to engage in conversations with them about continuing. And so I felt like it was important that the board hear directly from our team at the building level about how they felt about the school resource program and what their recommendations were. And it was a conversation that was very united in the support for the current model that we have in place, and not, there was no recommendations to reduce that in size. Actually, the recommendations were opposite of that. So I just, before we move forward and notify the town of what the district's intention is, I think we need to hear from everybody who feels that they want to share like their insights based on our conversations with our principals. So that's where we are, right?
On this one, did we want to go around and have everybody say a little something? Yeah. Hillary, do you mind starting or?
So our principals were uniformly supportive of, for sure, keeping the current SRO model, and we're in favor of expanding it if that was a possibility. I have not made a secret of the fact that I support the SRO program, so I would like to see it continue in at least its current form. Obviously, we tried to expand that last year through the budget vote, and that did not pass as it was written over the tax cap. So my feeling is that at this point, what makes sense going forward is to keep the program that we currently have in place. I don't get the impression that there would be a lot of extra money out there under the tax cap for expanding it. So I think that it is working. They have certainly made, without going into any detail, they have made accommodations for making sure that there is coverage when there are buildings that do not have the SRO present, to make sure that other officers are positioned for effective response times. And generally, I'm in complete favor of the program and would like to see it continue.
I agree with almost everything Hillary said. The principals really came out very strongly in support of the program, and to Hillary's point, he asked us if we could increase it. Obviously, with what happened last year and funding, increasing it may not be in the cards at this moment, but I agree with keeping the program as it is for now, and in the future, revisiting ways to expand it. But as of now, everyone thought the program was working really well, and the principals wanted and supported it, and reiterated that the teachers and people in their buildings all supported it and wanted it. So I'm in favor of keeping it as it is, and discussing expanding it, when the time is right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to, the conversation was framed sort of, are we going to continue with the status quo, or are we going to reduce? There was no real talk of expansion until they sort of annotated that they would be far more in favor of expansion than reduction. So for me, theirs are the opinions that matter the most. And Taylor and Alyssa's point, and you, Christine, they were universal in their support of the program. They also cited development of positive relationships with law enforcement, which I also think is a layer here that sometimes we overlook. But they all, to Alyssa's point, were unanimous in their staff's feeling of added safety when that SRO is in the building. So I think we'd be derelict in our duties to say, okay, we'll take that feedback and now we're gonna reduce the program. I think at worst, the status quo and, obviously financial constraints sort of eliminate the option to expand right now. But I think if we're looking to do one or the other expansion in the future, over reduction is probably the way we need to look at this.
So yes, it was very obvious that everybody was in favor of the current SRO program that is happening right now. Lots of principals talked about connections with students and faculty and staff, presence and engagement, supportive role and safety planning, flexibility and responsiveness. These are just some things that actually one of the principals wrote in that wasn't here that day. So there was an overwhelming amount of feedback about how great it has been working in their specific buildings, and that whether we're going to keep the current model or reduce, everybody was very clear about wanting to keep what we have at the very least. The one thing we did talk about was, and this is where the conversation came about of possibly expanding it, is that we want to, anytime we talk about SRO, we want to remember that the SRO program is not in and of itself solely synonymous to safety. There's many layers of safety within our district, and we want to look at this as part of our overall safety plan, and part of that, and a layer of that, that it's not that if we don't have one in every building, that it's not safe. We don't want to get into that conversation where it's about the, if we don't, then we're unsafe. If we have it, we'll be safe. The program currently that we have right now has been working. It's been working well. Not to say that there's room for growth or improvement, but we want to, again, when we think about SROs, I encourage everyone to think about it a little bit more broadly in the aspect of the safety of our students, faculty, and staff, more broadly, not just looking at one aspect of safety in our district. Because there's so many things that we have done as a district, so we don't want to completely dismiss that or forget about that. We want to remember that when we are having these conversations moving forward.
I don't know that I have a lot more to add. I agree. I don't see how we can in good conscience go against what each of the principals is saying that they want to do going forward. But we also know the community is not supportive of expanding it unless we come up with a different model via some kind of different funding approach. So maybe I can just leave it there and say I'm comfortable with Christine going forward and talking with the town about renewing it as it's set up.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that last year we had shared with some contract suggestions that we received from the community with the board, Josh and I, so we'll be revisiting those as well. And then the last thing is we know that Jamie Edelman is retiring this year, and we also know that we have Carol Bartlick serving in a part-time role as a coordinator for elementary education. And so I wanted Andrew to share with the community what our process will be as we kind of plan forward to address those two vacancies. So, Andrew?
Sure. The process would start with a series of focus groups that I plan to hold starting in January. I've done this a couple of other times for different leadership groups, and I would meet with constituent groups, with teachers, with parents, with administrators who are directly involved in the work that's supported by these positions to get a stronger understanding of the needs that each constituent group would see that should be supported by the positions, and that would help us to define some priorities. And then from that, the district will be able to make a recommendation on a structure to meet those needs and priorities. And ultimately, that same information would help guide the recruitment and the hiring process that we develop for them. So we'd start that in January and then be able to provide some additional information and guidance after that.
Thank you, Andrew. And now I just wanted, Adam, really briefly, we sent out to the community in the week some New York State Department of Education updates. But I thought it would just be helpful if you very briefly talked about specifically the graduation requirements. I don't think the clickers, oh, maybe it is working. So go ahead.
Okay,
Adam.
so let's start there. So New York State has rolled out an incredibly ambitious kind of transformational agenda. And I haven't seen anything like this in my years in education, and even doing some research before I got into education. It really is transformative. I'm going to highlight a potentially transformative. It's a proposal at this point. I'm going to highlight some of the key parts to it. The New York Inspires plan, a plan to transform education in New York York State. These are the 4 components that the state has shared: adopt a New York State Portrait of a Graduate, redefine credits and learning experiences, sunset diploma assessment requirements, and move to one New York State high school diploma. If you could click on, I have some additional information in these different sections. So some of these will impact us more significantly than others. The first one in itself, we've kind of been doing this work through our own profile and our own literacies that we've defined. So the state has defined 7 components. You can see some things up here: critical thinkers, effective communicators. That won't be a big shift in how we think about educating our students. However, that is tied to the second pillar that you see there. The New York State has proposed to shift from credits or units of study or how students accumulate credits from something called a Carnegie unit, which was actually rolled out in the early 1900s. It was like 1906, I want to say, where they came up with this idea of a Carnegie unit. A Carnegie unit is basically based on seat time. So 120 minutes or 120 hours of instruction gives you a credit, 60 hours gives you half a credit. And we were tied to that constraint with all high schools in New York State are tied to that constraint where you couldn't be creative about how you grant credit because you were required, like tied down to that seat time. So with that seat time removed, you have all kinds of options for experiential learning, hybrid courses, college level courses, work study courses, all kinds of things. So that opens up a lot of options and also flexibility in different ways that we can potentially grant credit. So there's not a lot of clarity just yet on that, but we do anticipate some flexibility. And then to go over to the third one, the sunset the diploma assessment requirements. Federal requirements are still in play. So ESSA requires every student succeeds act at the federal level requires that we give a math test, an English test, and a science test at the high school level. For us, we give a math test and a science test in 8th grade that count as that high school level kind of regions exam. So this would require that we continue to give the English exam. However, the other regions exams would not necessarily be part or required part of graduation. A student could take the regions exam to demonstrate proficiency, but they also could engage in other ways to show that they've met certain criteria, especially as linked back to those portrait of a graduate descriptors. So that will be a gatekeeper potentially removed with those high stakes tests as you're really thinking about just the 3 potentially that are required at the federal level. And then the last one, I don't see a significant shift for us. We have not offered a variety of like levels of diplomas. Those are designations that are attached to a diploma once a student graduates. And so we didn't see a tremendous value to those like advanced regions diplomas. We didn't do that here, but New York State is going to shift to just one diploma type. They're going to remove the local advanced designations on those diplomas. Instead, they're going to use things like seals and endorsements. We can click on one more slide there. Oh, I have a time frame here. So we're used to thinking about classes by graduating year, and the state is identified. They're using this language of cohorts. So I just like this is what we're used to thinking about. Like 8th grade is the class of 2029 as an example. If you click onto the next slide, I want to show you how the state is thinking about this because you are going to see this language as it starts to roll out in various presentations. This was a slide directly from New York State, except I added the grades on the left side. The cohorts are when students enter 9th grade. So your cohort 2023 and prior is our 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders. Cohorts 2024 to 2026, you can see the grades there on the left side. So I don't want that to throw people off when they see that cohort. That's not a graduating year, that's an enter 9th grade year. And you can see how this will all be phased in. The most significant changes, there is some latitude. For example, 10th, 11th, and 12th, you can see in italics, eligible students may request an exemption due to major life events. We do have students that have been in crisis for a variety of reasons, family situations that may have some exemptions and latitude here. But you see the things really start to kick in for our current 5th and 6th graders, where you start to see like new credit requirements, sunset of diploma assessment requirements, et cetera. So these could have some pretty significant impacts on our programming and give us a lot more flexibility as well. I think we've got just one more. There's also the state has published a Q&A. So none of this is regulation yet. It's all a proposal. The Board of Regents has not formally acted on it, but they have shown some pretty public like support of this kind of thing or these shifts. But you can see that there's a Q&A posted up on the state as well. I don't know, Dr. Ackerman.
Yeah, the next is that, well, I wanted to have these 2 slides because one, this is a proposal. People start to ask, well, what does this mean for me? Nothing yet. And then the second thing I wanted to highlight is the next slide, because this is the group of parents that we would hear from most often, and it's the 8th and 9th graders. And do I need to still take the Regents exam? And the answer is yes. Okay, this is right from the website. This is right from the website. So as soon as things become finalized, then we will start planning meetings with families. But nothing's finalized yet, but this is all over the news, and it was creating a little confusion because people thought this was going to impact their kids right now, real time. And so we're just waiting.
So-
The first group this will actually impact will be 10th and 11th graders who've had traumatic events, because that will be the first group that we need to look at to determine whether or not they're going to exercise their right to have the Regents exams waived. But we're not doing anything until it's all finalized. So go ahead, and Ryan, sorry.
Yeah, so question, sometimes when the state is thinking about stuff, we advocate for one version of these things, or we request consideration. Are we thinking of doing that for any of these things, or do we think that they're actually all favorable?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, this is my opinion. We are way beyond their minimum standards. And so this to me offers a lot of flexibility, but there's also not a lot of clarity. Okay, so they're in a portrait of a graduate box. We've moved on to literacies. So whatever they decide they are going to do in terms of their shift, I have no concerns that we'll be able to meet and exceed that. That's really the bar that they set in the state for us is easy for us to adjust to meet, because we exceed it.
Yeah.
Adam, would you agree with that?
Yeah, they are relaxing a lot of the constraints that have been constraints that we've had to work around, like those 120 hours. And it has locked us into not doing more creative things like work study and community service and service-based learning and things like that, that could open up a lot of online learning, blended courses, things like that.
Because the
That's-
seat time thing.
Yeah, they have really tight constraints. So this loosens up a lot of those constraints. So I think that we're well positioned as a district to take advantage of many of those things. And then some of these things really won't impact us, like the diploma type change, for example.
So we'll probably have more conversations about this when we have more information. So it's like a slow release of some real major shifts without a
If
lot
you
of
had to make
clarity.
an educated assumption, you think they're going to push this forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Even though they've been receiving some pushback that they're lowering standards, I think that's what's been in the media around this. I think that there's been so much work that's been done around this collectively throughout the state that I feel like they'll make an adjustment. They're not receiving the level of feedback they have around different issues that they've tabled, such as our new athletic potential protocols and regulations. They're not receiving that level of pushback for this. So I think because it makes, I think because it's more flexible. I think if it was a little bit more rigid, they would be receiving the level of feedback they have around different issues such as regionalization, right? They're not receiving any of that. Any other questions? So we'll be talking about this in the future at some point when they give us more information. And so, okay, great. Well, you're next too, because we have the Instagrams. So, oh, sorry, let me go back.
Sorry about that. I forgot I had one more slide, just
Oh,
changing
hold
gears. We
on.
have the, I'll jump right in this. We have a CSF grant on the agenda. That's 5.9. And it has been written by Karen McNally. It's for $379.90. And it is a made for young children tools so they can work with some cardboard. And so we do quite a few like STEAM activities where the kids will build with cardboard, but cardboard's challenging to kind of manipulate and cut and fasten together and things like that. So this is to create or to buy some kits so the students can work with cardboard. She's done some projects. She did one around Halloween where the students built a little fort out in the kind of main circular area, that turnaround there. And so she just wants to get some tools there. So thanks to the CSF for granting that for Karen McNally's kindergartners.
And then, and then Josh, we have some pretty significant change orders and bids on the agenda. So,
Right. One small change order.
oh, sorry, that's a small change.
Yeah.
order, yes.
So I think at the last meeting we had talked about at Roaring Brook, there were wire poles that were deemed unsafe that needed to be brought up to code. We put the new pole up. You could see the T-pole there. When Con Ed came out to inspect it, they determined that the more tree trimming needed to happen for the wires and the pole to make sure that wind and rain and all sorts of things doesn't interfere with it. So there's a small change order to do that tree trimming and maintenance work that happens. There are 3 bid approvals, which are for the middle and high school HVAC projects for general construction, electrical, and HVAC. So this is for all of the HVAC projects that we're doing at the middle and high school, for the gyms, the cafeterias, for air conditioning, and for L building. This is almost the end of the bids. We're under budget by about $1 million after this, which is great. So the strategy that we've been using to bid out the packages in smaller chunks for the time of year has really worked out. We're doing this now so that we could order all of the equipment and do all the work that we can on second shift, so that over the summer we could install everything. So the hope is there's going to be a lot of work happening on campuses this summer installing HVAC equipment to get everything up and running by the fall.
Thank you. And I just want to highlight, we're in the middle of our concert season. We've had multiple events over the past 2 weeks, and we are finishing up with our orchestra and our chorus concerts at the high school and at the middle level. And then we have Bolingbroke has Alice in Wonderland coming up this weekend. And so there's a lot of nice activities as we get ready to head into holiday break. So since this is our last meeting before winter recess, I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. So thank you. That's the end of the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Ackerman. I think we're going to go to committee reports next. I know Alyssa has one at least, and then we'll see what other people have. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have any?
I just have a shout out, so you can go first.
There's a couple other liaison things, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go first. You're gonna do bus task. Okay, so let me do the bus task force. So I'm gonna jump into wellness. We had a wellness committee meeting, and I will just very briefly tell you what we talked about. We had a presentation from Sandy at the high school talking about the new advisory curriculum that's been happening. Last year they piloted the One Trusted Adult in Life School, and this year we've rolled it out to 9th and 10th grade. So we got a little recap of how that program's going, and it's going really well. And we were able to ask questions of some of the teachers who are in that program, and look at some of the materials and just discuss how it's going and rolling it out in the future to the 11th and 12th grade. Then we talked about the regulations for the standardized lunch and gluten-free menu options and food tastings, and we are just making it happen at Wellness Committee. So it's been really exciting. Feel free to drop by if you're interested in helping us with those topics, but we are moving forward on all of those fronts. And then I also had we had communications meeting. Yep, was that yesterday? Yesterday, where we talked about our new digital bot, Horace. He's adorable. You're going to love him. And he's going to be a digital dot that you can use to help you navigate the school website. And you can ask it things like, what day of the cycle is it? And what's for lunch today? And who is my kid's bio teacher? That kind of stuff. And we have to keep teaching him more stuff. And when he's up and running, we'll be able to launch him. And everyone can use them to make navigating the system easier. And we talked about social media engagement and technology tools and areas for growth in that committee. And I think that's everything. You're going to do bus task force. Oh, and CSF, we wanted to do a shout out to say that they're doing the Wizards game again this year, so please buy tickets for that.
I would just like to add that I did sign up to be a volunteer basketball player.
Oh, amazing. You
at the Wizards.
I will probably do it again. I just consider calendars and stuff. Okay, so I can jump in on the school bus electrification task force. We met last Thursday, and Josh has been great about compiling a lot of resources out there for us to talk to and work with and see what our options are. So we met with NYSERDA this meeting and talked about what they're able to help us through, because they have access to a lot of grant money that's out there for this, and they are able to some extent, help us facilitate that process of accessing that grant money. So we talked about sort of
what grants it would make sense for us to apply for and what work we need to do before applying so that we will be approved for said grants. And we're also just trying to really sort of think outside the box in terms of ways to make this happen and ways to think outside of the traditional model. And can we partner with the town? Can we, like, are there places for symbiosis here that we're not necessarily thinking about busing in the context that we're thinking about it currently? So we're just trying to be creative and brainstorm, and these meetings are open. Feel free to drop by, and if you have feedback or commentary and don't want to come to a meeting, like, email us, because more brains are better than fewer on this. Like, it's a really complicated solve, but we want to get it done, and so that's. Anything else to add to that?
No, I think just one of the other things we talked about is having an engineer looking at lots of sites to see what is viable, even viable with power, and working with Con Ed to see what's available for us to even do at this moment.
Right, like if we decided we wanted to electrify a site to be able to charge buses, is that a site that is possible to electrify, and how long would it take, and how much would it cost, so that we're not applying for grants saying we're going to do this and then finding out after the fact that it's impossible for us to do it. And the other thing I will say, switching topics, is that Kaylee and I tomorrow are going to like a roundtable with Commissioner Rosa. So obviously we're not meeting again before the new year, but if we learn anything particularly impactful, we will share it and hopefully push it out to the community. But we're hoping to gain some more information on a lot of what we just talked about with the changing potential graduation requirements, and also things around like regionalization, which I know Dr. Ackerman pushed out in the week, the communication that we had sent upstate, and for highly effective advocacy in that regard in getting the proposed regulation. I think you should take credit. So we'll report back if there's anything we glean there.
Kaylee, you had a shout out you wanted to do.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a shout out.
I thought it was that you were playing the basketball game.
No,
No,
there's
that,
more.
That was a shout out too.
There's more.
So, Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund is having their second annual winter ball. Tickets are currently actively on sale. I'm looking at Matt because this event was sold out last year and people were crying, and we can't help you because once it's sold out, it's sold out. The capacity is to the max.
I was there, by the way.
Yes, because, right. So I was there. It's $25 per person, adult or child. But I don't recommend, if you're an adult, if you don't have a child to come with, like, don't just sign up and buy a ticket. I mean, it is a dance
Find
party.
a kid to bring.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So it's January 24th. If you go to hgsf.org, you scroll down, it's on the right, click on Winter Ball. Please purchase your tickets tonight. Do not email me if you don't.
Is this because I had to back channel a ticket from you last year?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying.
I was wondering if you were going to farm your kids out and try to raise more money.
If your kids didn't get in and you didn't buy it, I can't help you. So please, please, please buy the tickets. It will be sold out.
All right.
Get your dancing shoes.
I think that ends the committee reports, which means it's time for public comment. We welcome public comments, and in respect for each other's time, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board members may be contacted via email or phone. After the public comment period has been completed, board members may have a discussion amongst themselves regarding comments presented. Are there any public comments tonight? Hearing none, we shall move to approvals and ratifications. Dr. Ackerman? Oh, I got to do this one. Sorry. No, you always like jump in with your thing, but I didn't do the minutes yet. Geez, man, knock me out. Yeah, it's the medication in my back. I'm telling you. Ask me about that later if you want. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 13th, November 18th, and December 6th, 3.1 through 3.3?
I move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the
I'll second. All in favor?
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I'll move 4.2. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, number 5, this is our consent agenda for tonight. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Ed to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters that are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item can be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It's recommended the Board of Ed approves the following consent agenda items as submitted by the superintendent. We have 5.1 through 5.15 today. Is anyone intending to want to move something out?
No. No, but I do have a question before we vote.
Oh, right. Well, we'll do the motion
Yes.
now. 5.1 to 5.15 to take out the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Yep.
Second.
Wait, what do you mean
And
to
now-
take out the consent?
No, to take it up. Sorry,
Oh.
my grammar was poor. But then, yeah, go ahead, Hillary. What is your question?
Okay, so really question. I wanted to ask Josh to please explain to the community what's going on under 5.2 because it's a little weird.
Sure. So we have a plumbing bid that we put out requests for sealed bids for a plumbing contractor at specific labor rates. And when we get them back, the plumbers state what the rates that they're going to charge us for it. And as part of our due diligence, we compare those rates to what the Department of Labor rates for prevailing wage are. In that inspection, we had 3 respondents. All 3 of them had at least one rate that was below the Department of Labor's prevailing wage. So we needed to throw all 3 of them out. So in such, we needed to throw out the entire bid, and we need to rebid that. And that's to protect the district, to make sure that we're following appropriate laws and guidelines.
And is there any way when we rebid that to like make sure that doesn't happen? Because they should know that, right? The people who are answering these bids, they should know.
Oh, they know it. They're still doing it. So, so now they'll know that
We'll catch
our district is on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and during that, they can always call us for questions. We have very specific comment periods. People ask us questions, and then we put it out to all of the potential bidders in this case, and it's not as rare as you think. It is rare that all of them have at least one rate that's below prevailing wage.
Other questions for other items? All right, and I should have summarized some of what's in here. Those big HVAC contracts are in here. There's some annual maintenance things that we typically do at this time of year, as I understand it, and there is some disposing of some unused materials, things like that. So if there's no more discussion, I will ask all those in favor. Aye. Okay. Nothing for 6 tonight. So 7, facilities. Be resolved, the Board of Ed acknowledges receipt of the following change orders. So just 7.1. This is again just acknowledging receipt that we got this per the policy that allows the superintendent to approve these. Can I have a motion for 7.1?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then number 8, financials. Can do 8.1 through 8.3, acknowledging receipt of the treasurer's report for November 2024. Appropriation status report for November 24, and the revenue status report for November 2024. Can I have a motion for those 3?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Notice of future meetings. Tuesday, January 14th, 6 o'clock, so a little bit earlier start time for the budget preview and a presentation about demographics and the Princeton plan. We'll be here, and then again Tuesday the 28th at 7. Including an administrative retreat at 4, and we'll get a bunch of updates about strategic planning and the DET.
That includes us, the 4 o'clock time, correct?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
And so, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn at exactly 9 o'clock?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year.